We are beginning a new series this week called In the Beginning. For the next several weeks, up into leading up into Mother's Day, we're going to go back and take a look at the beginning of it all. We're going back to the beginning of the Bible, the beginning of the heavens and the earth. Now, creation is a controversial subject. Many people have been taught the theory of evolution, which says that the strong survive by evolving from one species to another. Of course, this, however, is not the truth. As we'll look at over the next few weeks, nothing evolved into anything. Nothing evolved in any manner. Everything was created by God as we see it today. Now, this is a rather long illustration, but it has some very good points. Robert Morgan wrote, "One good reason for accepting divine creation of the cosmos is that it results in human dignity and happiness, whereas the results of an extraordinary hypothesis of evolution are dark, sinister, and deeply troubling. Scientists, after all, gather evidence from their theories by conducting experiments and finding out what works and what doesn't. Does evolution then work? Does it result in psychological and sociological health and happiness? It is well known, if seldom known fact of history that Darwin's survival of the fittest and materialistic evolution conjures seized upon by Karl Marx provided the foundation for both Hitler's Holocaust and Saltines genocide. In America, Darwin's influence has been much more subtle. But think of it this way. Would you expect a generation that had been taught evolution from the earliest school days? If Darwin was right, we're nothing but accidental byproducts of evolutionary dust in an insignificant world lost somewhere in the vastness of a hostile universe and doomed to perish in a short period of time. We're nothing more than a match that blazes down on then is extinguished forever. We are without divine guidance, without any moral absolutes. We have no spirit and no soul. Therefore, we become obsessed with our bodies, obsessed with pleasure. All we are, as the song says, is dust in the wind. What does such a belief do to optimism and hope, to moral values, to the sanctity of life, to human dignity, to the sacredness of honor and family, to law and order? Dostoevsky, well, that's a hard name to say, it's German, once remarked that if God is dead, then nothing is justifiable. Philosopher Ravi Zacharias put it like this: there's nothing in history to match the dire ends to which humanity can be led by following a political and social philosophy that consciously and absolutely excludes God. If, on the other hand, evolution is true, or creation is true, then we are formed by a loving God in His own image. We are the crowns of His creation, the heirs of eternal life through His Son, Jesus Christ. We are people of dignity and worth, surrounded by a fantastic universe that He has made for our enjoyment. We are guided by sound moral principles in the book that He has given us. We have hope even through life's darkest hours. We have value beyond that of any other living creatures. Which option seems more sensible to you? You think about that for a minute. The theory of evolution is true. We're pointless. When it comes time to die, we die, and that's it. But if the story of creation is true, and we're going to look at that over the next few weeks, we're so much more in the eyes of God. I, for one, believe in creation. Now, back when I first started college, I went to college as a biology major. One of the classes that was a requirement for me to take as a biology major was evolution. And my professor hated it. I sat in the front of the class and I slept on purpose. And he pulled me aside one day after class and asked me why. And I said, well, I don't believe a word you're saying, so there's no point in me listening. Needless to say, I failed the class. It was the first F I ever made in my life. I worked my way around where I wouldn't have to retake the class. But anyway, that's a different story. But today, we begin looking at creation. We begin looking at how God formed our world, how He formed the heavens and He formed the earth. So let's take a look this morning back at the beginning. I guess as Back to the Future says, we're going back in time. Starting in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surfaces of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So when did time begin? Time began for us in the beginning. In the beginning of what? God has existed for eternity. God is not bound by time. Nothing nor anybody created God. In the beginning means the moment God created the heavens and the earth. God created the heavens and the earth at some point in eternity. And that for us is when time began. Now when we look at the Jewish calendar, we are in the year 5776. So somewhere between 5,776 or 6 to 6,000 years ago, God created the heavens and the earth. The idea that the earth is billions of years old does not match up with what God has given us, with the Jewish calendar, which traces all the way back to Adam. Now, I bet you've heard of the Big Bang Theory. It says there was a Big Bang that created the universe. Well, I agree with that Big Bang Theory. But it was not the Big Bang that scientists talk about that created something out of nothing, but the Big Bang was the voice of God speaking the heavens and the earth into creation. When God said, let it happen, it was so loud that even nothing had to obey. When God spoke, He spoke the heavens and the earth into being. So what about in the beginning? Well, in the beginning, we see that God is present. In Genesis 1, verse 2, we see that the Holy Spirit is present. So we have two of the three parts of the Holy Trinity present at the beginning, right? Well, if you agree, you're wrong. All three persons of the Holy Trinity were present. So now we skip ahead a few thousand years. We go to the book of John. John chapter 1, verses 1 and 3. It says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is Jesus Christ. In the beginning was Jesus Christ, who was with God and was God and still is God. Through Jesus Christ, God made everything. Everything that God has made was made through Christ, for Christ. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 16, it says, for by Him all things were created in the heavens and the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things were created by Him, for Him. Everything, whether it's physical or spiritual, was created for Christ. The plants, the animals, the air, even you and I were created by and for Jesus Christ. And sometime in the future, Christ is going to return and he's going to rule over that has been and will be created by him. Jesus was present in the beginning. So let's begin taking a look at how God accomplished creation. Today we're going to look at days 1 through 4, and the next week we're going to look at days 5 through 7. And then we're going to look the next week at the beginning of sin, and then we're going to look the next week at the punishments for sin. So let's go to day 1. Day 1 we find starting in Genesis chapter 1, verses 3 and 5. It says, "And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day." So after God created the heavens and the earth was formless. It was empty, it was dark. The waters were all that existed on the earth. Before God could do any work, he had to shine a light upon his creation. So he created light. Now, however he made this light is unknown, because he'd not yet created the stars and the moon and the sun. Maybe it was Jesus shining his light upon the surface of the earth. But now that there was light, God separated it from the darkness. He called the light day and the darkness night. Gee, everything that was created by God. Even the names of what we call day and night. He could have named it anything he wanted to. He could have named it rabbit in the morning and bunny at night. And that was what we know it by. Nothing that God has created is not good. Because God doesn't make mistakes. Therefore, when he looked upon his own creation, he saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. This is why the Jewish day runs from dusk one day until dusk the next day. Our clocks are set according to the dusk in Israel. Light, midnight for us, is when the sun comes up over there about 6 a.m. And our 12 noon is about 6 p.m. God created light, separated it from the darkness. And then there was evening, the beginning of the first day. So now we move on to day 2. Verses 6 through 8 says, "And God said, let there be an expanse between the waters, to separate the water from water. So God made the expanse and separated the water under it from under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day." So the second day, God separated the waters of the earth and created the sky. Now we know that a few hundred years ago they didn't know, but now we know that the earth is round. Remember verse 2 said that the earth was formless. But at this point the earth begins to take shape. Yes, it's the shape that we know it is today. It was never flat. The sky, the clouds that we see today were created by God when he separated the waters of the earth. At this point, the air, be it oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other elements in the air, were created. God was preparing the earth for living plants and animals and his greatest creation, us. Clouds are made of water. Sky is mostly water. And God created it. He saw that it was good on the second day. Again, there was evening and there was morning, day 2. The second day of creation was complete, but God still had some work to do in preparing the earth. So on to day 3, verses 9 through 13, it says, "And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered in one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called sea. And God saw that it was good. Then he said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed, according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it, according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. See, on the third day, God did a lot of work. Again, he was preparing the earth for the animals and the man to live on the earth. First thing he did was he gathered the waters and created dry ground. Again, we see that God gives it its name. He calls it land. He could have called it feet. Whatever he called it is what we would call it 5,776 years later. He called the gathered waters seas. Now, some people might ask if there's just one large body of land, and I can't answer that question. Geology says that there was once one big large body and there was a shift in the land masses. But does it really matter if it was just one big body or several little bodies of the land that we have today? God created it and put it in its place. He named it. If they did move, he moved it. After he created the land and separated the waters, again, God saw that it was good. The land would be able to sustain his future creation of man. After he created the land, he created the plants. From the trees to the bushes to the flowers to fruits and vegetables. As we'll see next week, though, he had not yet created thorns and thistles. But again, God saw that his creation was good. Now, I also need to point out, I know I've done it earlier, but God simply spoke everything into existence. He said, and let there be, and there was. Everything that was created out of nothing but the words of God. I tell you how powerful he is. God spoke everything into existence. He is so powerful that his voice alone caused creation. How many of you have a voice that's that powerful? And there was evening, and there was morning. Day 3. God created everything up to this point in order to prepare the earth for the animals and the man that he would create a couple days later. Before he could create them, he had a few more things that he needed to do to make the earth life-sustaining. So we move on to day 4, verses 14 through 19. It says, God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them serve as signs to mark the seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky and give light on the earth. And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater to govern the day, the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 4th day. And we saw on the first day that God created light, and he separated it from the darkness, and he created night and day. However, on this 4th day, we see that God created 2 great lights to mark seasons and days and years. At this point, God hung our sun and our moon in place. He put the planets in orbit around the sun. He put the moon in orbit around the earth. And he set everything into motion. The greater light, he called the sun to govern the day. The lesser light, he called the moon to govern the night. Now the moon actually reflects the light of the sun. However, God caused it all to happen, put it all in motion. On the first day, He created light. On the fourth day, He made our star, the sun and our moon, and the other stars. And now here we are, 5,776 to 6,000 years later, and they're still lighting our world. Did you know that there are more than 1 billion stars that go dark every day? But yet ours is still bright and shining. The seasons of spring and summer and fall and winter are still occurring on the earth 6,000 years later. Day and night are still happening. The stars can still be seen at night. And God saw that it was good. Plants need light in order to make food. Animals need light to find food. Therefore, God created what was necessary for the earth to sustain life. Not only that, but God placed the sun in just the right position to control the temperature of the earth in order for it to sustain life. Now, I know there'll be some people to disagree, but it's not too cold and it's not too hot. I know in the summertime you hear people complain, oh, it's too hot, and in the wintertime, oh, it's too cold. And it's usually the same people. Oh, I can't wait for summer, and in summertime, oh, I can't wait for winter. It's like, make up your mind. You know, it's always the same people that complain. But folks, there is a such thing as climate change. And God created it, and God controls it. So yes, I will admit, I do believe in climate change. Not man-made climate change, but God-made climate change. 5,776 years ago, God placed the sun in just the right position, set the earth in motion at just the right speed, and at just the right orbit for the earth to sustain life, the plants, the animals, and you and I today. Ever since day 4 of creation, the season has changed, just like they do today. God hung the sun, the moon, and the stars, and He named each one. There are billions of stars that still shine, and God knows the name of every single one of them. Isn't that awesome? In the beginning, God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit got together and they created the heavens and the earth. Day 1 through 4 was used to prepare the earth in order to sustain life. God created the light, the sky, the land, the plants, the sun, the moon, and the stars in order to prepare life, the earth, to sustain life, mainly the life of man. When God created the sky, He created the necessary elements that would be necessary for survival. On day 1 through 4, the earth went from being formless, dark, and empty to what we have today, some 6,000 years later. God created everything simply by speaking it into creation. The Big Bang was God's voice breaking the emptiness to create the heavens and the earth. There was evening and there was morning each day. So much of what we use for our times and our dates and our lives date back to the beginning when it all started. We continue next week. We'll look at creation days 5 through 7. But I asked you this morning, aren't you glad God went to work? Aren't you glad at one point in eternity, God said, and let there be? I'm a scientist at heart. I spent a lot of time in school studying science. Genetics killed me, so I switched majors. I still love science. I still love reading about science. Did you know that science through geology, astronomy, archaeology has proved 90% of the Bible to be true? From the creation of the sun, the moon, and the stars that we talked about today, all the way down to Noah's flood, all the way down to the existence of New Testament Rome. The 10% that science hasn't proven yet hasn't happened yet. What an amazing thought, though it is, that all God had to do was say, and let there be. And there was. God can do the same for us today. Whatever needs we have in our life, God can say, and let there be. And it will be so. Because when God says it, even nothing had no choice but to obey. So when God says it, everything now has no choice but to obey. So what do you need God to do for you this morning? What do you need God to say and let there be in your life this morning? Is it a relationship with Him? Is it courage? Is it strength? Determination? Is it a new heart, new mind? Healing? Whatever it is, come and lay it at the foot of the cross and ask Him to sing a few simple words and let there be. And it will be done.